Picture the dangers of ancient life. A saber-toothed cat crouched in tall grass. A cave lion stalking a hunting party. A giant bear blocking the entrance to shelter. Those dangers were real, but they were not the ones most likely to kill an ancient human. The greatest threats to survival were smaller, quieter, and far closer to home. And in one especially unsettling case, the greatest danger was not an animal at all. It was other people. Start with the danger everyone imagines first: predators. Ancient humans absolutely faced large, dangerous animals. Cave lions, saber-toothed cats, and giant bears shared the same landscapes as early Homo sapiens and Neanderthals across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Encounters happened, and some were certainly fatal. But predator attacks appear to have been relatively rare events, not a constant daily threat. Large predators generally avoid direct confrontation with groups of humans, who could throw spears, use fire, and move together. A lone predator risking injury against a coordinated group had little to gain. So if predators were not the leading cause of death, what was? The honest answer is something almost mundane: infection. In a world without antibiotics, a small wound could become a death sentence. A cut from a stone tool, a broken bone that pierced the skin, even a deep splinter, could become infected and spread through the bloodstream within days. Bioarchaeologists studying skeletal remains across many ancient populations have found repeated evidence of infections in bone tissue, sometimes healed, sometimes clearly present at the time of death. Something as ordinary as a twisted ankle during a hunt could, in the wrong circumstances, become fatal weeks later. This reframes the picture of ancient danger entirely. It was not usually one dramatic moment. It was the days and weeks afterward, when a small injury quietly worsened with no way to stop it. The second major danger targeted a very specific group: childbirth. Pregnancy and childbirth were consistently among the most dangerous experiences a person could face in the ancient world. Bioarchaeological studies of ancient skeletons have repeatedly found signs of death during or shortly after childbirth, and estimates drawn from skeletal populations and comparisons to modern hunter-gatherer groups suggest maternal mortality rates dramatically higher than anything seen in the modern world. Complications that are quickly treated today, difficult positioning, blood loss, infection following delivery, had no reliable intervention available. This single, biological reality shaped ancient society in ways that rarely make it into popular imagination. Survival often depended less on facing down a predator and more on simply surviving one's own reproductive years. The third danger came from the environment itself: exposure and starvation. Extreme cold, prolonged famine during lean seasons, and dehydration during long treks across unforgiving landscapes killed far more consistently than any single predator ever could. Unlike a dramatic animal attack, these dangers were slow, cumulative, and difficult to escape once conditions turned. A poor hunting season, a harsh winter, or a drought could quietly erode an entire group's chances of survival over months, without a single confrontation ever taking place. Here is the counterintuitive twist, and the part that tends to surprise people the most. For much of the 20th century, popular imagination pictured early human violence as primarily a battle between humans and dangerous animals. But archaeological evidence increasingly points somewhere else entirely: other humans. At the Talheim death pit in Germany, archaeologists uncovered the remains of at least 34 individuals from a linear pottery culture community roughly 7,000 years old, many showing skull fractures consistent with violent, close-range attacks, interpreted by researchers as evidence of a massacre rather than natural death. At Naderik, in modern-day Kenya, researcher Marta Mirazon-Lar and colleagues documented the remains of at least 10 individuals dating back roughly 10,000 years, showing blunt force trauma and, in some cases, embedded projectile points, in what they argued was evidence of one of the earliest known episodes of intergroup violence between hunter-gatherer populations. Paleoanthropologist Eric Trinkaus, who has extensively studied skeletal trauma patterns in Neanderthal remains, found that many Neanderthal skeletons showed healed fractures concentrated in the head, neck, and upper body, a pattern he compared to modern rodeo athletes rather than typical predator-related injuries. This suggested repeated close-contact violence, potentially between individuals, rather than accidents from animal encounters alone. None of this means ancient life was defined by constant warfare. Evidence of large-scale, organized violence appears inconsistently across different times and places, and many ancient communities show little to no evidence of interpersonal violence at all. But the presence of sites like Talheim and Naderik complicates a comforting assumption: the idea that early humans mainly needed to fear the natural world around them, rather than each other. So the real picture of ancient danger looks less like a single dramatic showdown, and more like a layered, ongoing set of quiet risks. A predator in the distance, worth respecting but rarely deadly. A small wound, easy to ignore and sometimes fatal. A pregnancy, biologically dangerous in ways modern medicine has made almost invisible. A harsh season, slowly wearing down an entire community. And occasionally, tragically, another group of humans, arriving not as saviors, but as the very real threat that history often prefers not to dwell on. Return to that opening image. The saber-toothed cat in the grass. The cave lion stalking from the shadows. Replace it with the truth. A tiny cut on a hunter's hand, ignored for a few days too long. A woman surviving childbirth against odds modern medicine has quietly erased from memory. A community weakened not by claws or teeth, but by a colder winter than expected, or by a group of strangers who did not come in peace. The deadliest dangers of the ancient world were rarely the ones with fangs. They were the quiet, ordinary, deeply human ones, then and now.